It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with Chief Conversationalist Thomas Senna. Featuring Matt Ardill. And special guest, Ryan McNeil. And now, curator of the hall, JD.
Thank you so much, Doug the Nance. It is an absolute thrill to be here with you inside the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Before you come into the hall, if you would do me a favor, and please, wipe those dirty feet. It's November after all. You've probably tracked in leaves. So there's that. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to vote for the most deserving and help determine who will be enshrined for perpetuity in the hall. And that's how we play the game. It's just that simple. So we've got a great show today. We've invited back Ryan McNeil to discuss Jack White, who was substituted into the SNL Hall of Fame nomination process after we could not find a suitable guest to discuss the career of Randy Newman. So if you're playing along at home, scratch your scorecard out, Randy Newman, and please add Jack White. So there's that.
Before we go downstairs to Thomas and Ryan McNeil, making his second appearance this year, to talk about Jack White, we have a little tradition around here where we talk to our friend Matt Ardill in his Minutia Minute Corner. Oh, Matt!
Hey, JD, how you doing?
Never better.
Great. I'm feeling a little icky thump right now, but that's a bit of a hint about who we're going to talk about today. But I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you.
All right. So we ready to talk about Jack White?
Let's do it.
Okay. Actually, much taller. I just always imagined him as a short guy. He's 6'2", born.
Really?
Yeah. I did not expect that. I've never seen him live, so yeah. But born July 9th, 1975 in Detroit as Jack Anthony Gillis, the youngest of 10 children. His father was Scottish-Canadian. His mother was a Polish immigrant, Catholics. So a big Catholic family. He almost entered the seminary, but instead decided to go to a technical school where he studied upholstery and fell in love with punk music. So we might have had Father Jack instead of Rocker Jack. So I think we wound up with the better of the solutions there. He met Meg, his first wife, as a senior in high school at a restaurant. And that's where they decided to get married in 1997, and he took Meg's last name, White. He has AMAs, Anti-Radio Awards, Best Vinyl Art Award. He's been nominated for Brits, BAFTAs, Clios, Country Music Awards, the Detroit Music Awards, Emmys, Grammys, and more. He is
Country Music Awards.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's done a lot of country production. So,
okay.
Yeah, and a couple of country songs. I mean, that's the thing. He really loves... The line between rock and roll and country is very thin. Like, country became rock and roll.
Right.
Johnny Cash is considered a rock and roll artist for the longest time. So, yeah, so he really honors that tradition of rock and roll. He's a true old school artist. He records analog and splices a tape together using a razor, saying it's sort of like I can't be proud of it unless I know I overcome some kind of struggle. So yeah, he's dedicated to the craft of generating old school music. And like a lot of old school music, he's not above doing an ad. He wrote a song for Coca-Cola in 2005 called Love is Truth. And he has no qualms because he loves Coca-Cola, and he was writing for an original song for a brand that he loved.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing at all. Yeah, and now, like I said, he's a true fan. So he's of musicians and music. He's actually helped revive the careers of Loretta Lynn and Wanda Jackson, producing and performing with them. He considers himself to have had 3 dads: his biological father, God, and Bob Dylan, which is an interesting, holy triumvirate. But his first concert was a Dylan concert, and he's very involved in music preservation. Donated $200,000 to the National Recording Preservation Society, and has encouraged other musicians to help do so. He's so much involved. He is now a member of the Library of Congress's National Recording Preservation Foundation.
Gee whiz.
Yeah. So he is dedicated to the craft. In 2016, he launched a phonographic recording.
You said phonographic, right?
Yep, phonographic.
Okay, great.
Yeah. A recording of A Glorious Dawn by John Boswell, along with a recording of Carl Sagan, Into Outer Space, using a balloon 94,000 feet into the air, just brushing up against outer space, in a space-proof capsule where the turntable played the recording for over an hour in outer space. So spreading music to the stars. But I'll wrap with this. He opened his Third Man Records a few years ago, a recording label and vinyl pressing producer in Detroit. Like Sun Records, you can walk in and lay down a track on acetate and buy the vinyl pressing, just like Elvis Presley did during his early days. In fact, Neil Young has recorded a track using their personal recording booth in Nashville. And Third Man Records are the only producer of vinyl for the Motown label, which they produce locally in Detroit. So, I mean, as much as he is, willing to cast shade at Detroit, it's pretty clear he loves it as much as he loves rock and roll.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thomas, take it away.
All right, JD and Matt, thank you so much. Hello and welcome to another conversation portion of the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Today we are talking about a musical guest. I love talking music here. One of my passions is music. So anytime I get to intertwine it with SNL, I always love doing that. And my go-to guy for music, second time this season that I'm having him back. I demanded it. JD signed off on it. So I am having him back. We talked U2 earlier in the season. Today, we're talking about Jack White. So joining me to talk Jack White and SNL, host of the Matinee Cast, Ryan McNeil. What's up, man? Good to see you again.
Have I managed to get any bands into the Hall of Fame yet? Like, are there any of them there?
It's not your fault. I'm Robin Williams and you're Matt Damon, and it's not your fault, Ryan.
It's like justice for Prince is what I'm saying here, first of all. But hey, I'll take it. Anytime I can sit down on somebody else's show and nerd out about music for half hour, 45 minutes, I am more than happy to do it.
Yeah, but when the season started, I was like, I'm gonna advocate for Dave Grohl all season, but then he kind of has some little scandal, and now I feel a little weird.
Yeah, it could be worse, in the grand scheme of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. This one's a little bit further down. I mean, there's a band that we were gonna talk about, but I was like, nope, I'm not talking about them anymore.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the fact that, like, one of the bands that I would have, it was like one of my first choices to talk about years ago. I was like, nope, can't talk about them anymore either. So
yeah, so I think on the you're right on the
scale,
list.
It's a sliding scale. It's still not great, but on the scale of not great.
So I still want Dave Grohl to get in, but maybe I'm like less staunch about it just for optics' sake. I don't know.
I got you.
But I don't blame you for not putting in a musical guest. We've had a tough time just in general putting in musical guests.
I'll keep coming back, man.
But we're gonna keep trying. So today we are talking about Jack White. I actually wanted to ask you, like, update us. It's November 4th when this comes out. So update us on, like, what's going on with the podcast. Like, where are you at? What have you been doing?
We're coming up on the 15th anniversary of the show. I am a senior citizen where it comes to podcasting. 15th anniversary of the show. We're back with a fresh season after. I usually take September off, so now we're like the rust is off. We're into full blown conversations, into like the fall. Oscar season or that kind of like prestige season when it comes to movies, and it's a fun time. I've been rejuvenated with some extra time off. I've got things planned. I got guests lined up. It's really nice, but it's a little bit of a weird autumn when it comes to film because we're dealing with the ripple effect of the writers and the actors strike from 23. So things are very staggered. Things are, kind of a little bit sparse. There's still a lot of gems in there. We're going to record, as we sit down here, a show about Anora would have just gone up, and that was a show that did a lot of great things at the festival circuit. So yeah, it's fun times going into, the 15th round.
That's awesome. So when we go to the Podcasting Hall of Fame, you could see Ryan's bust along with like Mark Maron and Bill Simmons and Scott Aukerman. Ryan McNeil will be right there as like a pod.
Don't tease me.
So yeah, check out the Matinee Cast if you love movies. Ryan does a really great job. Our topic today, our nominee Jack White, he's done a bit of acting in his day. I think Coffee and Cigarettes. He was just in Killers of the Flower Moon,
which I thought was hilarious because I actually didn't spot him when I first saw it, and then I read an article later above all the people in Killers of the Flower Moon, and I was like, Jack White was in it. Where was Jack White in it? And I like went back to look and see. I was like, is he like in a disguise? Is he in like a whole bunch of period attire? It's like, no, it looks like Jack White with glasses. Yeah, it's I was quick. So tired at the end of that movie because it's so long. I did like it, but I mean, that needed an edit. And yeah, he shows up in movies a lot. He shows up either for a few minutes or he'll usually little cameos, but he likes doing that. I actually did see, there's a really great documentary about him, Jimmy Page, and The Edge from U2 called It Might Get Loud. And I actually saw that at the Toronto International Film Festival with all three of them there years ago when that premiered. So if you ever want to see like what Jack White is about as a guitarist, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know that existed. I'll check that out. There's so much content out there. Damn it. I need to get a hold of it all. So great recommendation. That's awesome. Were you a White Stripes fan back in the day? So how did your fandom start with Jack White?
I mean, I was just kind of sitting around in 2002, picking through your Linkin Parks and your Evanescence and your Limp Bizkits and your all kinds of new metal, all kinds of pop. And into the middle of this comes this little new garage movement of bands that start with the. So you get the Hives, or you get the
The Strokes,
thank you. The Vines is another one that didn't really catch on, but they were big for a hot second. And into all the middle of that is the White Stripes. And I first came across them by, I was like 2 albums late because the White Blood Cells was the one that broke in 2001, 2002. So I came to them when they did this great little video directed by Michel Gondry, where it's all done with Lego blocks. So they were kind of this. And then I started digging, and this was back when the internet was far less dependable, and there was this whole question of whether they were husband and wife, brother and sister, what were they? And the whole thing just seemed like so fascinating to me, and I was in.
Yeah, I think Jack and Meg, probably mostly Jack, liked to mess with people in that regard. I think he went out of his way to sometimes make people think that they were brother and sister. at one point.
He often would refer to her, like even on stage, he would refer to her as his sister Meg.
As my sister Meg, yeah.
Yeah.
But they were married.
They were.
Yeah, Meg's now his ex-wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's around the time. I mean, it did break. You're right. White Blood Cells is kind of when they broke. That's where some of their early popular songs came off of. That was their third album. Jack's like prolific though. Like we'll talk White Stripes, and they released 6 albums from like 99 to 07. We still hear some of their work at sporting events with Seven Nation Army. That's like
he never needs to work again.
Never again.
The man, it's, we lob around the term of this person has written an iconic song, but legit, like he could live off Seven Nation Army royalties for the rest of his life.
Yeah. In my other podcast, we were doing a Queen episode on my podcast, Pop Culture 5.
Yep,
and yeah, so we had talked about like We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. And my co-host Jeremy brought up like, what's another song that could rival that? And I said Seven Nation Army at sporting events, like as like an iconic, and he's like, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So people might not even know. They'll know they'll know
the hook. Yeah.
They'll know the hook, but they might not even know it's from the White Stripes or whatever. So it's just congratulations, Jack, for writing Seven Nation Army, a song that I actually do still like.
Oh yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, it's a really good song. So he had the White Stripes. I was a fan of the Raconteurs too. Back in the day, I liked The Consolers of the Lonely was an album that I played a lot when it came out back in 2008. Did you get into the Raconteurs at all?
All of it. Everything he's done, like he shows up. The funny thing is, so the Raconteurs, he steps back a little bit. Dead Weather, he steps back even further.
Sure. Yeah.
And then he kind of started doing his solo stuff in around 2011, 2012, thereabouts. No, I've loved him. Like everything the guy has done, it all sounds, it still sounds like him, but he keeps playing variations on what interests him. And I love it all. It's a great time.
It's like Raconteurs was like a lot of Americana kind of influences. Dead Weather was like really hard rock, like it's Alison Mossert from The Kills, Dean Fertitta from Queens of the Stone Age. So it was like really like
it's a great little super group.
Yeah, really cool super group. I saw them at Coachella one year. It was awesome. I think I saw them in Albuquerque one time too. So I liked the Dead Weather. Whorehound's a good album if you haven't checked them out. And then you're right, he did solo stuff starting in he released his first solo album 2012 and the latest one this year. So 18 albums across 25 years, like quite prolific, Ryan. Like this guy just lives and breathes music. That's just what he knows, right?
It's like I honestly believe that if he couldn't play, like he wouldn't know what to do with himself. Although he would just stick to running Third Man Records, which we didn't even touch on. On top of all of this creation, the guy also runs a label that has been home to a lot of artists over time. Like one of my favorite singers at the moment, Margot Price, she got her start on Third Man Records. There's a lot, and they do these great, like lovely editions of albums. They bring people in and perform at their little space and create records that way. Neil Young has been there. Father John Misty has been there. He's just, he really just loves all things analog, and he loves creating music, whether he's out front or he's behind the board.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the term analog because that's where my mind goes when I was especially watching his SNL performances. It's just like a very very bare bones analog kind of style, and it's so distinct. As far as Jack and SNL, and maybe I misunderstand him and he's misunderstood a little bit, but it's kind of interesting to me that he became like a favorite of SNL and it was asked to be brought back because his personality type, he always struck me as like a rough kind of guy. I know he's been maybe in a few fights and stuff that have been publicized, I believe. So he never struck me as like a fit for SNL in terms of like he would be like invited back and be like a 5-timer musical guest. Like that marriage of Jack White and SNL, am I misreading Jack White, or is that kind of on the surface like a funny little thing?
Well, I mean, what's interesting is he can get feisty. He's picked a lot of arguments with a lot of outlets. Like he got into it with Rolling Stone at one point. He can be a little crotchety in terms of things like critique. So Lord knows what he would think of what you and I are talking about right now. And, and certainly when it comes to things like, celebrity culture and who's he dating and so on and so on and so on. Not that he's ever really gotten into, he's not exactly a hermit, but he's also not what I'd call a man about town. Like his idea of going out is he'll be sitting at a ball game. And he has. There's been times where he'll go to a town for a show, he'll go to the ball game in the afternoon and then play the show that night.
Big sports fan, which is kind of surprising to me too. Yeah.
Yeah. But when it comes to the actual performance and when it comes to the actual creative end of his career, what I think the way I think he impressed himself upon all things 30 Rock is he often gives you something singular in the way that he won't perform something the same way 2 nights in a row. He likes to screw around with things. So if you're the kind of person who likes to go to the show and hear the song exactly the way it sounds on the record, you might not want to see Jack White because he doesn't always do that. He doesn't really stray off the trail the way like people like Bob Dylan do, but he likes to mess around. That's number one. And the thing is as well is that he will always give you a high energy show, even if he's playing some of his quieter numbers, which he did, and we'll talk about. He always gives you a really great performance. Like he's a really good showman on top of everything else, whether he's playing or whether he's singing. He knows how to keep your attention. His concerts notoriously want your phones locked up. He's the kind of band, there's not a ton of them that are still hanging on to this with 2 hands, but he is one of these bands that if you go see him at an amphitheater or an arena or a theater, you can count on your phone getting locked and being inaccessible for the duration of the show. He doesn't want you looking at your screen. He doesn't want you taking pictures. This flies right at me because that's what I do. I take a lot of pictures at my shows. He wants you to be in it. And I think that any band who wants you to be in it, they know it's because they are putting themselves out there. And that's what he does. So 30 Rock and SNL and Lorne saw this in him early on. Like you watch that first performance he does with Meg, with the White Stripes in 2002. And he is very much out front there. He's not doing the sullen Strokes, Hives, Vines thing of like hiding behind their hair and, kind of like into a mic. He's very much putting himself out there, and that sold.
Yeah. And I love that performance that night. I love how he announced himself with the first song. And I should say I like to kind of like put people in the place of like who the host was, because it just kind of gives you like the time period and who, John McCain was the host for this episode back in 2002. I just found that kind of funny. It kind of rivals. This one was a little more weird when Steve Forbes hosted in the 90s and Rage Against the Machine was the musical guest. That's probably the most odd pairing.
No kidding.
That I can think of. But John McCain and Jack White, that's pretty funny too. So he opened, I should say, because it was him and Meg, so it was the White Stripes for his first time on the show. Dead Leaves and The Dirty Crown, a song that I love. And I think it's just awesome. Like he just, right away, they open with like a crunchy, loud song, like announce themselves.
And the dirty ground when I know you're not around. Shiny tops and soda pops when I hear your lips make a sound. When I hear your lips make a sound.
That film that I told you about earlier on, It Might Get Loud, they each take a turn playing one of their numbers while the other two watch. And when Jack White plays Dead Leaves and the Dirty Ground for Edge and Jimmy Page, they look at him like he is an alien. They look at him like, how are you making this noise with this instrument that we both know backwards and forwards and have been playing for longer than you've been alive? How are you doing this? It's one of the things I love about, like, that's the first song on the record. It's a great introduction to them as a band, to Jack as an artist. He's really, he's so happy to be there. It's kind of funny because, like, for a guy who seems like he kind of has resting bitch face and kind of seem kind of grumpy.
Yeah.
When he just loves to play sometimes, and you can see he looks so young. He's got this big huge smile on his face, dressed all in red. The White Stripes were all about these rules and seeing how much he could get out of being in a very, very narrow box. And he's so playful. He jumps, he twists, he contorts. Meg is like pounding on the drums like a Captain Caveman.
Yeah. And she's doing her thing where she kind of sways and puts her head back, and she's just sort of like, her arms are almost like independent of the rest of her body, the way she drums. And what do you think of Meg as a drummer? I always thought she's gotten a bad rap, but I thought she was perfect for what they were
She's
going
underrated.
For. Yeah.
My take on her is that she is underrated. That there's a lot of sexism baked into that. That Jack on his own would not be the same, and Jack with Jack could have got any drummer he wanted at the time, and Jack has had several drummers since, but that drummer fit that sound and did some really interesting things with tempo that when you really dig into it are really cool to see. And just, there's, the short answer is sexism, but,
I agree.
I just, the whole thing is kind of baked in mystery now because we got to, 2011 when the White Stripes decided to call it quits, and Meg completely dropped off the radar. And so that's the thing, is that there's this whole air of mystery of, well, what was Meg and what is Meg now? But no, I always loved her, always thought she's underrated, and hope whatever she's doing now, that she's happy.
Yeah, I hope so too. I know. Just I really wish Meg well. I know she was, as a lot of us are, deal with some mental health every now and then. But I always liked her drumming. I thought like that driving, like with the White Stripes, it was just like these like driving rhythms, and I thought Meg was like perfect for that. And especially this song, "Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground." His guitar, Jack's guitar, is almost just like it's defiantly like yelling at you.
The wild thing about that guitar is if anybody calls up that performance, you get a really good look at his guitar. It's actually a spectacularly cheap guitar from Sears. Like that costs, no, I'm not kidding. It cost him awesome. It cost him something like $125. It's plastic. Like it's so comically amateur.
Like a starter guitar.
Yeah, basically, it's the kind of thing that you give like a 10-year-old kid to learn electric guitar, and he's getting all these incredible noises out of it. Yeah. And he's not like he's going completely bonkers with pedals or anything like that. He's doing that the same way that any other guitarist would. But he's getting a lot of noise out of a cheap plastic guitar and his bandmate, his sister, or his wife, on drums. They for two people, they make a lot of noise.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just like set the tone for what I love about many of Jack White's performances on SNL. Second song, I'm really curious about your perspective, because I'll talk to a lot of fans of artists, and there's certain songs that they might shun a little bit for one reason or another. Maybe it's become too popular. It doesn't sound like the band. I think We're Gonna Be Friends might kind of be like that with some White Stripes fans. Curious about your perspective on this song.
I can't imagine somebody not liking We Are Gonna Be Friends.
You'd be surprised. I don't know.
Maybe it's a teeny bit overexposed, but at the same time, it's just so sweet. It's the kind of thing you can sing at a campfire. You can teach it to kids. I think about a song like that, and I kind of think about it the same way I think of Yellow Submarine. And I know that's kind of high praise, but just something sweet and simple that, you can teach a 6-year-old and they can learn and become, kind of this song that they just sing on the bus. It's hard to do that, like for every one baby shark, there's a lot of other sharks that do not catch on, and to do it without specifically aiming for that kind of timelessness, it's hard to do. So yeah, people may not like it, and good on you, I guess. It always just makes me smile. It always makes me smile, makes me feel nostalgic for when things were simpler, and
you're right.
When we didn't know if they were husband and wife or brother and sister or what they were.
Numbers, letters, learn to spell, nouns and books and show and tell. Playtime, we will throw the ball back to class, through the hall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. And we don't notice any time pass. We don't notice anything.
Yeah, I always thought this was very pleasant.
Yeah.
Just a very pleasant listen. Maybe not what you would totally
It's like 2
expect
minutes.
from like a rocker short song. Yeah, I always thought if they were to play something else from White Blood Cells, Fell in Love with the Girl might be like a fun one. Hotel Yorba has always been one that I really love, and I think it comes across well live for them too. I've seen some really good live performances. I was a big Coachella goer, and on the first Coachella DVD, they have the White Stripes performing Hotel Yorba at Coachella, and it was really cool. But no, I think this is a very this kind of nice and pleasant. Welcome to the World. This was 2002, so you're right. Like it's their third album, but
it was their break. Like they had really just broken through a few months sooner. This was really kind of this whole year was their coming out party.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of unfortunate as far as SNL goes, because this is the White Stripes' only appearance on SNL. So I would have liked to see them come back maybe like when they released Elephant or something, or any of their albums.
I mean, for a guy who plays Seven Nation Army pretty much every show, it's wild that he's never played it.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I would have loved to see like Slowly Turning Into You on SNL, any of those songs. So that's our only White Stripes performance on SNL.
But it's great. But they nail it.
Yeah, for sure. And for someone who's so synonymous now with SNL, it took him 10 years to come back. 2012, Lindsay Lohan, our host, trying to maybe turn things around for her career. She's a little bad girl. Let's go on SNL, maybe reshape. We'll have Jack White come on. So he didn't appear with the Raconteurs on SNL, didn't appear with the Dead Weather. So he's here doing his solo stuff, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. And this was fun. Because this album and this tour, he pieced it together through 2 different backing bands. They have names, but I can't quite remember them. But one band is all dudes and one band is all women. And a lot of stops on this tour. He would play 2 nights, and one night he'd play with one band, one night he'd play with the other band, and you didn't know which one you were going to get. So people like me had to go twice. And you know what? It was worth every penny. To see the 2 different bands, see how they backed him. He, like I mentioned, he likes to mix things up and try different things. So, when he was recording, he was like, what happens if I get just all women in the room to play with me? What happens if I get all dudes? What happens if I mix it up? Because he does believe that there is a different energy in the room depending on the gender dynamic. He's not wrong. They're both just... They're 2 different songs that he plays on this performance. Like he plays a slower, kind of a country type number in Love Interruption.
Like a little bluesy feel to it. You can tell he's really into the blues, and really nice duet. Too.
Beautiful backing vocals. He's got like an organ. He's got a fiddle.
That you offended me, or how you had to bend me when everybody told me down. And I want love to change my friends to enemies, change my friends to enemies. Show me how it's all my fault. I won't let love disrupt, corrupt, or interrupt me. I won't let love disrupt, corrupt, or interrupt me. I won't let love disrupt, corrupt, or interrupt me anymore.
And then he comes out for his second number. He comes out to play 16 Saltines, and it's just a straight up rocker, backed by this 4-piece of guys.
Lets it rip.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, so I'm going to be doing all kinds of different things now. Like, I hope you like the little red, white, and black 3 instruments, 2 people thing, because now I'm just going to totally change it up.
and I mean, this is different from the White Stripes. If you're looking for the exact same like pounding rhythms of the White Stripes, you're not going to get it. This is stuff that like Jack's into, and it's awesome to be able to see him explore it on this album, Blunderbuss, and on this episode of SNL. So I love the variation, love interruption, and then just 16 Saltines is like your classic, like I'm gonna play the rocker. So I mean, this is where I can, if I'm an Lorne or whoever books the musical guests, I'm like, man, this guy's so damn reliable already for us.
I think one of the things that, you know, probably subconsciously he had on his mind is, I need to show people that wasn't a gimmick. I need to show people that wasn't, you know, two people, red, white, and black, three instruments, and, you know, just being confined by those rules. And that you know, when I'm doing my own thing, like, cause he had all these other bands that he was part of. He's like, when I'm doing the Jack White stuff, that I don't need to confine myself by new rules, you know, like I can just kind of keep on playing with it. I really do think that was important to him. And he shows, he's like, I'm going to still mess around with shit. I'm going to, you know, be loud. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to change up the styles.
But you're going to hear, you might hear an organ.
Yeah.
And you might hear somebody jam out to an organ. And
sometimes there may be 10 of us up here. Sometimes there may be 3.
As a White Stripes fan, I was kind of going into his solo stuff. I was like, what's this gonna be? Because I like, and it didn't disappoint at all. His solo stuff really didn't disappoint. So so that was a really wonderful appearance by Jack. His second time on SNL. 6 years later, and I want to spend some time on this one because this performance blew me away. So John Mulaney's your host. Really great duo, John Mulaney and Jack White. Awesome stuff.
Great episode, yeah.
Great episode. The first song, Over and Over and Over, it's like some funk to it. It's like a funky, groovy song. I loved it.
I did too, and oddly enough, like I wasn't crazy about this record. His first two solo albums for me are absolute bangers. This one comes in and it's a little bit more muddy. I'm like, did we just run out of ideas? Did we just hand everything? You know, he's fine. He's come back with some great records since. He's fine. This is just a little dip in the road, but I do love this song. He's backed by the Mixed band now. So again, when I talk about like, he doesn't want to be a gimmick, same thing. He didn't want to be the guy who's, okay, I'm either all going to be backed by women or I'm going to all be backed by dudes. He's like, I can be backed by anybody and, you know, mix it up and play with great musicians. And we will create some great stuff for you every time. You know, he's got this very, very big sound now with this, you know, whatever it is, a 5-piece or something that's behind him. He's playing around with these different mics so that he can get these different vocal effects. And yeah, it's another one of these like shredding rockers that's meant to basically melt your face off.
The second song is Ryan, like we're throwing out takes here. This is my favorite song that he performed out of the 10 on SNL. Like I was like blown away when I rewatched this. Like I don't know if you enjoyed it as much as I did, but I thought this was stunning.
Listen, any modern rock band that can create an incredible waltz, that's not easy, you know, like to do something in 3/4 time. It's this, his vocals really show on this one. His vocals are wild because most singers sing how they speak, unless you're like Elton John who drops his accent. But most singers, they kind of sing how they speak. He does this wild thing that kind of shouldn't work. And it really shouldn't work when he gets quiet. And yet it does. He's got this really lovely, almost like it. If you were to push it just a little bit further, it's a reedy voice, but it's not. It's just this, this thing that kind of feels like it's like at least 80 years out of time. And it really shows off when he plays something that's just a teeny bit quieter, like Connected by Love is. And yeah, you get this lovely timbre, this lovely tempo. And, in the middle of it all, you do get still some lovely fretting. It's this journey of a tune. Yeah, it's not the kind of thing that you would expect to see, listen, it's played at 11:40, it's played at 12:45.
Yeah.
So, but it's not the kind of thing that you would expect to see played on SNL as I don't even think this was a single, to be honest, but
no, yeah, you're right. It's a good way to describe it. It was like a journey. It really was. And with Jack's voice, his voice to me sounds like pained. Like there's some pain and like behind it. It's like a pained bluesy kind of voice, and it just works so hard. Like he emotes so well with that. And then you get this great like heavy organ and guitar kind of breakdown like 2.5 minutes in, and then like the end of the song is stunning. So he takes you back down, and then it's a quiet Jack kind of singing again, and then the crescendo.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm feeling like I'm like he just took me on a ride.
Yeah,
here.
It's a journey. It's a beautiful sonic journey.
Yeah, I'm probably going to play it. Like, this is the thing that's going on. We're probably going to play at the end of the episode.
Love it.
Honestly. So, just like, yeah, my favorite performance, I think, of his 10, just showcasing a lot. I never took Jack for we think of Jack White, it's like, oh, great guitar player. But then his voice here is like highlighted, and you're like, whoa, he can really do a lot of things with his voice, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was by Connected by Love and Over in his third appearance. Awesome stuff. He comes back with more awesome stuff, though. Bill Burr hosted the second episode of season 46. This was October of 2020. And he hits us with a medley, but it had a nice flow to it. It didn't read like a medley that you would hear that was just like, here's one song and then a demarcation and then here's the next song. It like really melded like three different songs together. I thought this was pretty fascinating.
I was wrong, by the way. Connected by Love was a single off of Boarding House Reach.
Oh, okay.
I've really let that album fall out of my brain. Every band, even your favorite bands, they've got one record and you're like, eh. And then, they play great songs off it. Like, was that always on there?
Yeah. That song's I'll highlight. But.
Yeah. So this is actually the performance that made me want to champion him for SNL Hall of Fame, because people may have forgotten, but he was not supposed to play this night. This night was supposed to be Morgan Wallen.
Yes.
And Morgan went and said a very bad word, which apparently has not slowed his career one bit. But for 5 minutes or so there, nobody was booking Morgan.
Well, I think it hasn't slowed his career because of maybe the
genre that he's in.
He attracts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is true. This is true. But I mean,
yeah,
like even within there, like you can fall back for really, really being sketch in country music. Sure. And he managed to dodge this one pretty quickly. Doesn't help that he's white. Doesn't hurt that he's white. Doesn't hurt that he's a man, because the world just comes to us no matter how much we screw up.
Yeah.
So we're talking days before the SNL decides to drop Morgan. It's at least Tuesday. It may even be Wednesday. They call Jack White. So like, if you're telling me that this institution has people who they tap on short rest, saying, get this person because we know they'll give us something good and they can do it quick, that tells you something about what the show thinks of him. Mm-hmm. And listen, he very easily could have gone out there and played Seven Nation Army, and they would have loved it. And they would have said, thank you very much. Have a good night. And he would have been able to do it, with his eyes closed. Mm-hmm. But instead he goes out there and he plays this medley that starts with his contribution to a Beyonce record. Like, he doesn't even lead with his own song. He leads to his contribution to one of the biggest artists of the moment There's kind of a sly clap back in terms of who he's replacing. And then goes into this lovely medley of Ball and a Biscuit from the White Stripes. So we do get one more White Stripes song.
It's a flock down the stepping sun.
A lot of people probably know it because of The Social Network.
They do.
Yeah.
Fun fact, it was also the Matinee Cast theme song for a few years. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
nice.
it was.
Yeah.
Because it's a microphone. A Ball and a Biscuit is a microphone. So I thought it was being clever.
Oh, yeah. And it should be said, too, this is 2020, so Jack White's not necessarily promoting an album.
No.
Because he had released one in 2018. He's
in between things.
He's in between things. So they just literally said, Jack, come help us out.
Yeah. Like, as far as I know, he wasn't on the schedule. Later on, and they just bumped him up.
I don't think so, yeah.
And then, it's a longish performance. It's about 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes. He then incorporates this blues cover called Jesus Is Coming. Jack is very, very steeped in old school blues. He loves playing stuff like Son House and those and those kinds of blues guitarists. Not in an appropriation kind of way, but just in that's the kind of thing that he likes to play if he just picks something up in noodles. He's got this great little 3-piece behind him or 2-piece behind him, and he creates something singular. Like there is a 45 of this performance that exists. I have it because I'm that nerd. But it's not that, like, it never became. He doesn't perform it this way in person. Yeah. I've seen him a ton of times. I don't think I've ever seen him play "Don't Hurt Yourself." But yeah, he's like, I'm on TV. I'm going to put on a show. What can I come up with? And he comes up with this thing on short rest.
That's so awesome. He weaves the Ball and Biscuit riff kind of in and out of the song, so you're kind of hearing that Ball and Biscuit riff that a lot of people know when he's doing Jesus Is Coming Soon. You're hearing that Ball and Biscuit riff kind of come in and out, so it's just like a medley, but he makes it like into a cohesive kind of thing with the flow to it. It was really impressive, and as you pointed out, he was just replacing Morgan Wallen, so who knows how much time he did, like how long it took for him to come up with this.
Yeah, for real. Anyway. If I was Jack White, like, the temptation, if it's me, the temptation is off the chart just to walk in there and play Seven Nation Army, take my check and go home. It's like, I know I can do this. I know it's going to slap. I know I don't need to think twice about it. Here you go. Here's your song.
He didn't come to SNL to promote, or when he had released Lazaretto, so he decides to play
Lazaretto,
the Lazaretto song from as his second choice, and I love that. It was like it's jaunty too, so it's like, it's interesting. It has like a nice shredding quality, but to me, it's like kind of a jaunty kind of ditty as well. It was just like maybe a less hard driving rhythm, but still it has like that Jack White signature. And it's a little different than what we've seen him do in SNL, but like I think I've learned not to like pigeonhole Jack White into something that like he's not just the guy. Like, he can sit up there and just shred, but he's not just that guy.
He really likes to mess around with things. He likes to speed things up and slow things down. And, all right, let's add in a stand-up bass. Okay, let's add in an organ. Let's add in a hurdy-gurdy or something like that. He did songs for Cold Mountain back in 2003, where he was playing these very kind of folky instruments along with everybody else, like the T-Bone Burnett group that was on that soundtrack. He likes to experiment, and that's the cool thing, is for being in a time where a lot of bands really like to play it safe, or they go to the opposite extreme and they really like to jam, which if that's your thing, that's your thing. I can't do it. It doesn't, I'm not wired that way. You know, he finds that lovely middle ground of in between being very safe and being very jammy and creating something different every time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not necessarily the type of guy who can go to a Fish concert and just sit there and watch them noodle and stuff. That's like a really nice balance. Like Jack White, My Morning Jacket strikes that balance for me. I think a former SNL musical guest, My Morning Jacket. They like those types of artists strike that balance for me. I think it's really neat. You want to watch them go off the cuff, but then they bring it back, and it has a really nice flow to it. So I thought this is really cool. Jack White saved the day after Morgan Wallen screwed up. Jack White came in and saved the day. Good on you, Jack White. The show obviously trusted him. He was one of their go-tos, and he comes back for a 5-timer. And for another guy who got his 5-timer jacket in the same night, Woody Harrelson. So this was just last year, February of 2023, Ryan. Interesting night. With Woody as the host. It is really cute because Woody is in the middle of introducing him and he's like, wait, he's a 5-timer too. Does he get a jacket?
Which I don't know if they were thinking about that or not, but they did. They gave them both jackets at the end. Yeah. Jack actually seems really touched that he got a jacket.
Yeah, we don't see that. By the way, I don't think we really see musical guests get acknowledged for the 5-timer thing.
No, and it's funny, I did look it up before I sat down to have this conversation. There's not a boatload. For a show that's been on 50 years, there's not a ton. There's 8 that have been on for 5 times or more. And when you consider the lifespan of your average band, it's actually kind of tricky, because we like to think that a lot of these bands are around forever, but a lot of them are not. And even just if they are, because, it's like a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is its own thing with a lot of bands that have been around for ages. It's hard to find a spot in your schedule to keep showing up and doing this kind of thing. Like, I'm still pounding the desk for Prince. Prince didn't even make it 5 times, and he was a thing as long as SNL was a thing. SNL is still going, of course, and Prince, unfortunately, is not. But yeah, Jack showing up 5 times. There's a few other bands. It's this weird little cross section. Some of them may not show up for a 6th. Others have shown up for like many times. Like I think Sting has been like 8 times or something. But I don't see Sting showing back up anytime soon.
Randy Newman's been a ton.
Yeah, Randy's been a ton, but same. Coldplay is showing up a lot. Like if anybody's going to keep on turning up, it's Coldplay. They've already shown up this year. But yeah, Jack's a 5-timer, and he shows back up to do this first of 2 records that he puts out in the same year. He does A Tip From You to Me. He does Taking Me Back. He's down to a little 4-piece. It's basically a straight up rock number, but he's still so playful, so energetic.
A little jarring for me, Ryan, was his hair. We're seeing like a more clean cut, shorter hair Jack White.
Yeah.
Could be a little jarring for some people.
He's got this like pompadour going on.
Yeah.
When I saw him play the summer before this, he had like a buzz cut. And he was playing in like basically like fireman pants and a black t-shirt. I'm like, this does not look right at all. You are a person who normally wears like Fluvog shoes and rhinestone pants or something. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but it's actually something I like about him is he cares a lot about stage presence. And it was just this thing that he was trying for a while because, it's got to be exhausting. But yeah, the hair, him usually showing up there with like the kind of almost greasy looking like chin length black hair, and all of a sudden he's there in a pompadour that's kind of dyed blue. It's not quite what you expect.
Yeah. Jet black hair with the pretty pale face.
Yeah.
Kind of like the juxtaposition of those. It is pretty striking, but this is a performance though. Like, I think that it's just somebody who's established himself as Mr. Reliable. I mean, heavy, groovy, the song's engaging to listen to.
Slow
Like you're watching something like this and going, oh, yeah, that's why SNL likes to bring him back, because you know you're not going to get a bad Jack White performance. If he's the musical guest, it's one of those where I'm staying put on my couch. I'm not going to go let the dogs out to pee. I'm not going to go get a snack or something I'm like sticking on my couch to watch Jack White because I know he's reliable, right?
He's also, like I said, he's very energetic when he performs. He's very much an old school showman when it comes to him playing guitar. He doesn't just, he could just get up there and get lost in his frets and get lost in his pedals and just create these little sonic scapes. But he likes to dance around. He likes to jump. He really likes to give his whole body over the performance. He does that in this number. He's very, very dancey in this one, like really kind of like twisting around and doing his thing. It's great to see him do these.
Yeah, 100%. And then the second song, A Tip From You to Me. To me, this felt like a callback to his Raconteur stuff. It kind of sounded like that Americana, like the stuff that he was kind of doing with the Raconteurs. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, I love that stuff. So I loved this song because does that connection kind of make sense to you?
Totally.
Yeah.
He really does like to bring different parts to different songs. And I mean, I feel like I might be repeating myself, but I like that every time he shows up, he'll hit you with something driving and then something mid-tempo, or, he'll play the rockabilly number and then he'll finish you with a waltz. So this lovely back and forth of these two numbers. I would have liked it if he had played something off the second record that he had coming. But for me, between the two, that was the better one. And it was the one that he didn't tour as much either. So come on, Jack, what the hell? No, it's a great performance.
My peace is freedom from the masses. The masses cannot see. That's a tip from them to me. And I know for sure I don't need nobody's help now anymore. Oh, will I be alone tonight? Oh, I don't know.
And it's his fifth time and he gets a jacket.
Yeah, and then you're right. He seems so touched. They rarely acknowledge the musical guest as a 5-timer. Probably some of it was like they're kind of messing with Woody a little bit, but they had 2 jackets, so they had one for Jack and one for Woody. So I think that was just like a really neat moment there. Absolutely, he just released No Name in July of this year.
Yes.
So I hope, and says especially it's his 50th, and he's like a reliable. I mean, I'm hoping let's bring him back.
It's great record. There's lots of stuff on there that he'll just absolutely tear.
It just makes sense if his schedule allows for it, and he's one of those. And if you ask even like somebody who considers themselves an SNL fan, say who are the like musical guests that you associate with the show, I would hope Jack White would come up. I'm not entirely sure for some reason. People would say McCartney, but they should say Jack White.
It's a generational thing, right? Like at the moment, they're kind of at this interesting crossroads at 50, where if you think music and SNL, you think Bruce Springsteen, you certainly think Paul Simon, you think Dave Grohl, you think Tom Petty, but those are all people who either aren't here anymore or don't show up as often. Now they're the people who they keep bringing back are people like Rihanna, Billie Eilish. But even she's been gone for a minute. Jack White is one as well. Why did her name just fall out of my head?
I was saying Billie Eilish too.
Billie shows up a bunch, and
Ariana Grande.
No, hang on. I can see her in my head. I just can't. Why did the name? Miley shows up all the time, yes. And Miley shows up, and she always does really lovely things. Like Miley has actually really evolved with SNL over where she started and become something even more amazing. She was always immensely talented.
Yeah.
She's just now sort of the same thing. She's exploring other things. But back to Jack, I mean, the one thing I do hope when he comes back is I kind of hope they get him into a few sketches because he's shown in the past he likes to act goofy and he likes to act dopey. He's done stuff with Conan. He's done stuff with Colbert. He was in Watch him play a really weird Elvis in Walk Hard. get him in a sketch, and I bet you $5 you'll be happy with what you get.
Completely agree. We've seen that recently with musical guests. I mean, they like to get Dave Grohl in sketches.
Oh yeah,
all the time. Was it Chris Stapleton did a hell of a job?
Yeah,
they put him in a sketch. They'll put
getting the women from Boy Genius to be the doctors with Timothy
exactly.
Chalamet.
Dua Lipa is so have Jack White. I completely agree with you on that. It's something I hadn't thought of in prep for this, but you're 100% right. We need Jack White in a sketch.
We do.
So now's the time, Ryan, where we're talking to SNL fans.
This is the time where everybody tunes out if they haven't already.
Yeah, the water cooler folks. You got to chat with them and tell them, about Jack White. Why should we view him as like an important part of SNL's musical history here?
Good question. For me, it comes down to the two things. It comes down to he's a 5-timer, and if a 5-timer matters for host, 5-timer matters for a musical guest, especially because there's not a ton. There's probably less 5-timer musical guests than there are hosts. I'm actually reasonably sure of that. And the Morgan Wallen taking the ball on short rest and giving you what he gave you. Very easily could have mailed it in. Very easily could have said no. But showing up, bailing the show out, and giving them such a singular performance, that is Hall of Fame worthy.
Thank you so much to Ryan McNeil. Make sure to check out his movie-loving podcast from his movie-loving blog, matinee.ca. Ryan always brings it, and, on his podcast, and of course on our podcast here in the SNL Hall of Fame. As Thomas mentioned, he is our music correspondent, and, he always brings the goods, as they say. Speaking of bringing the goods, let's go to a performance from Mr. Jack White and see if we can cement his legacy further and get him into the Hall of Fame as a musical guest. Let's do it. This is Jack White, Connected by Love on the SNL Hall of Fame.
Woman, don't you know what I'm suffering from? It is my pain, make it wash out with the rain. Relieve me and put it up on your shelf. Take it away, give it to somebody else. 'Cause I know we're connected by love. Yes, I know we're connected, connected, connected by love. I can't be directed by your love. Connected by love. Friend of mine, you seem to know me best. You chose me out of all of the rest. Take me home with you and help me forget. Let's take the worst and somehow turn it into the best. 'Cause I know we're connected by love. Yes, I know What have I done? I have pushed away everyone. Help me forget. Let's put it all to bed. Forgive me. Save me from myself. Don't forsake me, woman. Go and choose somebody else. 'Cause I know we're connected by love. 'Cause I know connected by love. I never be protected like a love. Connected by love.
Oh man, what a performance, right? That, that should seal the deal there. I'll talk to Joe and Shari later this week to see what they think as they re-rank. And so far this season, they've got you two as off the ballot. Right off the bat, they don't think they're going to get the 10%. So it'll be interesting to see what they think of Jack White after hearing Ryan's passionate argument with Thomas in that conversation. Folks, next week we have another fantastic show as we are talking Bobby Moynihan, who seems to be a favorite of everyone, doesn't he? He is like our drunk uncle. He's just a great dude, and Sammy K will be discussing him. Speaking of great dudes, Sammy will be back to talk about the bona fides of Bobby Moynihan. Will he make it into the hall? I don't know. We will have to wait and see. That's what I've got for you this week. So if you could please do me a favor, and on your way out, as you pass the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNL HOF. This is Doug Denant saying, see you next week.
To podcasts and such.